All right, let's dive into Wuthering Heights. No Cliff's Notes or anything, just us and Emily Bronte.
Going straight to the source.
Yeah.
I like it. No better way to understand this novel than to just immerse yourself in her language.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I'm a little nervous about this one. Wuthering Heights, it has such a reputation
Oh, yeah.
for intense passions and brooding characters,
Yeah.
all very dramatic. But I'm curious as well. Why do people keep coming back to this book after all these years?
It's a question that's captivated readers for centuries. One of the things that makes it so compelling is how Bronte uses the setting to reflect the inner turmoil of her characters. You're transported to the Yorkshire moors. Wild and desolate landscape. Almost feels alive.
Oh, yeah, I remember that description of the house itself. Perched on a hill, exposed to the full force of the north wind. It's almost like the house is battling the elements, just like the characters are battling their own demons.
Exactly. It's not just a backdrop. It's a force that shapes the lives of everyone. That sense of being at the mercy of nature, of forces beyond your control. That's a theme that runs throughout the novel.
So it's not just that the characters are isolated geographically, it's deeper.
Absolutely.
Them-
Think
some-
about Heathcliff. Introduced as this brooding figure, origins are completely shrouded in mystery. He's an outsider, someone who doesn't belong.
And that first encounter, Lockwood shows up and he's expecting a warm welcome, and instead he's met by this pack of snarling dogs.
Right. It's not just about the dogs themselves. It's about how they represent this wildness, the chaos that exists within the walls of Wuthering Heights,
Oh.
foreshadowing the untamed passions and the potential for violence.
Oh, wow. Like the dogs are a warning sign. Be prepared. Things are about to get messy.
Exactly. And speaking of messy, the love triangle. Heathcliff, Catherine Earnshaw, and Edgar Linton.
Oh, yes. The love triangle. Classic literary trope. But Bronte does something really unique. It's not just a romantic rivalry. It's about class, social expectations, the struggle to find your place in a world that doesn't understand you.
Catherine is a fascinating character. She's torn between her love for Heathcliff and her desire for a more stable life with Edgar. It's almost as if she's being pulled in two different directions.
Right.
And neither path feels right.
Well, I always think about that quote, he's more myself than I am.
Yes.
I mean, that just gives me chills. It's a connection that goes beyond attraction.
Right.
It's a shared soul,
It's all neat.
kindred spirits.
But then she decides to marry Edgar, saying it would degrade her to marry Heathcliff. Societal pressures of the time, particularly for women.
Heartbreaking, because you can just see how deeply she loves him, but she also understands the limitations of her social class, her gender. She's trapped between her heart and the world she lives in.
That conflict, the struggle between passion and societal constraints, something that resonates with readers even today. We all face choices where we have to weigh what we desire against what's acceptable.
Absolutely. And in Catherine's case, that choice has consequences, not just for her, but for everyone around her.
Exactly. Her decision sets in motion this chain of events, spirals into tragedy. And it's compounded by the fact that we're seeing the story unfold through Nellie Dean,
Oh, Nellie.
the housekeeper.
Such a curious character. She's the one who witnesses everything, all the drama. But she's not just a passive observer. She offers her opinions. She's trying to influence the characters.
She's a participant. Her perspective, her biases, shape the way we understand everything.
So we're getting a filtered view of the story, one that's colored by her own experiences. Which makes me wonder, how reliable is she as a narrator?
That's a question that has fueled countless literary debates, and it's one of the reasons Wuthering Heights continues to fascinate us.
So Bronte is challenging us to look beyond the surface, to question what we're being told, to consider multiple perspectives.
You got it. One of the things that strikes me is the way Bronte uses language to create this atmosphere of unease, of something lurking beneath the surface. It's not just the setting, but the way she describes the characters and their motivations.
Okay. Like when Lockwood describes Heathcliff, he has a genuine bad nature, but there's also this strange allure to him, this magnetism that draws people in.
It's that ambiguity, that complexity that makes Heathcliff so captivating. He's both repellent and compelling, embodies the contradictions of human nature.
I can't help but wonder how much of his darkness is a result of the way he was treated, the way he was denied love and acceptance.
That's a fascinating question. It leads us into one of the most powerful themes, the cycle of cruelty.
Okay, what do we mean by that?
Well, think about how Heathcliff, having been subjected to mistreatment and neglect, turns around and inflicts that pain on others.
Like his relationship with Hindley. After their father dies, Hindley becomes incredibly cruel to him, treating him like a servant.
And that cruelty fuels Heathcliff's desire for revenge. He becomes obsessed with righting the wrongs, but in doing so, he perpetuates that cycle of pain.
It's like this poisonous vine, growing for generations, choking the life out of everyone. How do we break free from these cycles? Is redemption even possible in a world as harsh as the one Brontë has created?
Those are the questions that lie at the very heart of Wuthering Heights. As we go on, I think we'll find that Brontë offers us not easy answers, but a nuanced exploration of the human condition in all its beauty and darkness. Brontë doesn't shy away from the consequences of all of this. Heathcliff's need for revenge, it doesn't bring any satisfaction. It just creates more pain and suffering for everyone.
So he's trapped in this cycle of self-destruction, almost like he's unable to break free.
Yeah, and that's where this idea of redemption
Yeah.
becomes so intriguing. Is it possible for someone like him to find healing?
It's a question that haunts the entire book, because even in his darkest moments, you see hints of something else, this flicker of vulnerability.
You know, there's a scene where Heathcliff is describing his love for Catherine, and he says, "I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul."
Wow, that's powerful. A love that's all-consuming.
It's existential.
He doesn't just love her, he sees her as a part of himself,
Right.
the very essence of his being.
Makes his actions even more tragic. He's not
Yeah.
just seeking revenge, he's trying to reclaim a part of himself that he believes he lost when he was separated from Catherine.
So Catherine's choice to marry Edgar, it's even more devastating. She's not just breaking his heart, she's shattering his sense of self.
It's a wound that festers, fuels his rage, and drives his need for retribution. What's interesting is that Brontë doesn't just focus on Heathcliff. We see the impact of his actions on the next generation.
All right, the novel spans decades, and we see how that cycle of cruelty continues.
Think about Isabella Linton. She's drawn to Heathcliff's wildness, but she doesn't see the darkness underneath.
And she pays the price for her naivete. He marries her, but it's not out of love. It's to get what he wants, control over Edgar's estate.
Classic case of someone being blinded by passion, failing to see the warning signs. The consequences are heartbreaking.
Isabella ends up trapped in this loveless marriage, abused and neglected.
It's a reminder of that destructive power of passion, how it can lead us down paths we never intended to travel.
Absolutely.
And Brontë weaves together these complex themes with the Gothic elements that make Wuthering Heights so memorable.
Oh, you're talking about the ghosts, the dreams,
Exactly.
the premonitions.
We're not just there for spooky effect. They add this layer of psychological depth, this sense that the past is never truly the past.
Like Lockwood's dream when he first gets to Wuthering Heights. He sees Catherine's ghost
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to get into the house.
It's so chilling. Sets a tone for the entire novel. Creates this atmosphere of unease, this feeling that something sinister is lurking beneath the surface.
And then there's Heathcliff, almost like a ghost himself,
Yeah,
haunting the moors,
right.
seeking retribution.
Trapped between the world of the living and the dead. Unable to find peace. That sense of not belonging resonates with so many people even today.
Makes me think about social mobility, how difficult it was to break free from your social class. Heathcliff, with all his intelligence and ambition, he's marked by his origins, never fully accepted by the upper class, and he can't go back to his old life.
Exactly. You see, that's what makes this novel so great. It's not just a love story or a revenge story. It's about class, social injustice, the ways our identities are shaped by forces beyond our control.
It's told in this incredible language that captures the wild of everything.
Right.
Brontë writes about the low, dull thunder of the sky, the wild wind sweeping over everything.
It's like the language itself is mirroring the emotions. It's raw, untamed, leaves you breathless.
And yet there's also tenderness, beauty that shines through, like the relationship between young Catherine and Hareton Earnshaw.
Yes. Their connection offers this glimmer of hope, a suggestion that the cycle can be broken.
But even that hope is tinged with sadness. So many lives lost, so much pain before they can even find each other.
And it makes you wonder, is their love strong enough to overcome it all? Or will they become victims of the past?
It's a question that lingers.
For sure.
One of the reasons Wuthering Heights continues to captivate us, challenge us, to confront the complexities of the human heart.
It defies categorization. A love story, a ghost story, a revenge story, a social commentary. That's why it continues to resonate with readers.
It speaks to something universal, something about the human condition that transcends time and place.
It reminds us that even in the darkest times, there's always hope redemption, connection.
But it also cautions us against unchecked emotions.
Right.
The ways our choices can impact, not just ourselves, but generations to come.
It challenges us to question our assumptions, to look beyond the surface, to seek a deeper understanding of what shapes us.
The moors, that landscape, almost like a mirror of the emotions of the novel. Wild passions and storms and then beauty.
A place that's both isolating and inescapable. The character is always drawn back to Wuthering Heights, even when they try to get away. It's like the house is a magnet, pulling them back in.
I'm thinking about the structure of the novel, how Brontë uses it to reflect those themes of cyclical patterns and interconnectedness.
How so?
Well, the way the story is told. Lockwood, the outsider, arrives and gets fascinated by the family. And then Nellie Dean tells us everything that happened.
Right, the housekeeper.
And then within her story, we have other voices, Catherine's diaries and letters.
We're piecing it all together, trying to make sense of it.
So it's like Brontë is deliberately creating this sense of disorientation. We don't know what to believe or whose perspective to trust.
Exactly. That's part of what makes it so compelling. It's not a straightforward story. It's a story that spirals inward, each layer revealing a new meaning.
I'm realizing now, it's not just a love story or a revenge story. It's about family, about the bonds that tie us together, even when those bonds are full of tension.
Like Heathcliff and Hindley. They start as brothers, but after their father dies, Hindley becomes so jealous
Yeah.
and starts treating Heathcliff terribly.
That starts the cycle of revenge.
Right?
Love can turn to hate so easily.
But it's not just the negative parts of family. There are also moments of tenderness and loyalty, a deep connection that goes beyond the pain.
Like Heathcliff and Hareton.
Yeah, Hindley's son.
Heathcliff loses everything and finds some kind of solace in raising his enemy's son.
It's such a complicated relationship.
Heathcliff is cruel to him, treating him like a servant, but you can also see that he sees himself in Hareton, like a chance to fix his mistakes.
Trying to recreate the family he lost.
And then, of course, there's Hareton and young Catherine. That little bit of hope for the future.
A chance for healing. Breaking free from the cycle of cruelty.
But even that happiness is sad.
Of course.
Thinking about all those who have suffered.
Makes you wonder, can they truly escape it all? Can they create a new future, free from the past?
Brontë doesn't give us the answer. And that's why it still resonates today. Wuthering Heights is not just about one family. It's about the human condition, the power of love and loss, finding meaning in a harsh world.
It challenges us to confront the complexities of our own lives, to examine our families, our pasts, our own capacity for good and evil.
Emily Brontë, she created a world that's both beautiful and terrifying. It stays with you.
A story that sparks so much conversation and debate. There's always something new to discover in it.
The hallmark of a great book, you can read it over and over, always finding something different.
It challenges us and provokes us. It makes our lives richer.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive. Grateful for the opportunity to have read this amazing book, a book that will stay with me, a reminder of the power of stories.
A story that invites us to explore the depths of ourselves, to find meaning and connection.
We'll leave you with the mysteries of Wuthering Heights to find your own interpretations. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, happy reading.